Um, Good afternoon to those joining us from the East, and good morning to those joining us from the West. Welcome to our final webinar entitled The Aftermath of COVID-19 on Women, as part of the fikr circles or thought circles that we've been implementing within our communities. As a background, the Women as Partners in Progress project has hosts these webinars in Jordan, and is a project funded by the Middle East Partnership Initiative, MEPI, and directed by the University of Maryland. In Jordan, the World of Letters is the implementing partner. The WPP project is implemented also in Morocco, Kuwait, and Jordan, making it a regional project. We host a network of 70 leaders and emerging leaders from different sectors and different geographical locations. We come together to tackle pressing issues that women face in their countries. When the COVID-19 pandemic set, we felt the need to amplify the voices of women in Jordan and the Arab region. So over the past 5 months, we hosted 6 webinars and listened to more than 27 speakers from around the Arab region to learn about their experiences. So this final webinar, which is held today, is going to be in English because it hosts honored guests from around the world. The guests are from Romania and from Indonesia, and we have a guest from Saudi Arabia and, of course, Jordan. The webinar has the option of translation because you are used to the Arabic webinars, and so we're going to do it this time in English. And because Zoom does not have an Arabic icon, something maybe we have to change, the floor will be in English, and the icon that shows the German icon is going to be the translation. So thank you for joining us. And before we start the sessions, I will share with you now a video that we developed to culminate all the WPP Zoom sessions that we've done. So here's the video, and before we start our sessions. So the video will be up soon. So the video will just give us a snippet of all the 26 speakers. It's a 9-minute video, and you will just see the different themes that we've worked on in the past 3 months during our COVID closure. We'll look at the social protection efforts. We'll look at something about distance learning and education efforts, be it in Jordan or the region. We had a session on gender-based violence and how it's exaggerated or exacerbated during the COVID crisis, the COVID pandemic. We talk about different experiences. We did have a couple of intervention talking about the role of women in the media and how are they represented. And here's the video for you to go through and watch. All right. Okay, I'm sorry for this technical problem. I think if we are going to get a bit delayed, let's have a look at what's beyond the video. Few minutes, just look at the video. If we can't, then we will actually the video. So the webinars, all the webinars were collected.
And her organizing this activity, which is a very important activity.
We needed to ask ourselves several questions. First, how will gender roles and stigma be perceived as we move forward? What unseen and visible messages are we sending future generation, sending our kids? What precedent are we setting, and what messages are we resonating to the public. Also, all the collective efforts of many organizations working towards equality, has it all been shattered in the wave of this COVID crisis? What are the perpetuated messages that is being legitimized and justified to erase women, maybe from leadership and maybe from history, in a part that we should be actually putting women in the forefront as they combat the virus?
Among the countries which have done a better job of handling and addressing the coronavirus pandemic, the percentage of women leaders is disproportionately higher, and it's higher to a significant degree.
And now with the prolonged quarantining, this has made it even more difficult for women to leave their homes in order to seek help from their relatives. So based on this data, it's clear that there needs to be more education and awareness about gender-based violence, strengthening of healthcare sector responses, sensitizing the local police and the legal systems, and an increased support for the local NGOs who are helping women living with this domestic violence.
As of April 24th, according to UNESCO, 190 countries in the world are currently experiencing countrywide school closures, affecting about 1.6 billion learners. This translates to over 103 million learners in the MENA region alone.
Because there is no any real access for the woman to the justice. As you know, the court is closed, the police department is closed. Maybe after the crisis, we see the real number about this crisis.
أيضاً أن أشكر سعادة النائبة والمحامية وفاء بني مصطفى، وهي عضو مجلس النواب كما قالت ميادة، عضو مجلس النواب الأردني ل3 دورات. أشكرها سعادة النائبة على دعمها الدائم لمشروع النساء كشركات في التطوير والتقدم، وعلى مشاركتها الدائمة في نشاطات هذا المشروع.
شكرا دكتورة ميادة، وشكرا دكتورة مي الريحاني على هذه الفرصة الثانية لإدارة الجلسات بالتعاون مع مشروع النساء كشركات في التقدم والتطوير.
كان في هناك فشل أو ضعف، يعني أنا بحكي كمان عن المنطقة العربية بشكل عام والأردن، لعدم وجود إطار شامل كان لا
أي كارثة بتصير أي مشكلة بتصير لا تتأثر النساء والرجال بنفس الطريقة، لأنه تقع المشكلة على أرضية عدم مساواة بالأول.
في الأسبوع الأول كانت هناك تزيد عن 100% نسبة الشكاوى المقدمة بمركز المرأة للإرشاد القانوني والاجتماعي حول العنف ضد النساء، وتوزعت هي الأكثر في المدن وثم أقل في القرى ثم الأقل في المخيمات.
وفكرنا أن نسمع صوت المرأة بنفسها بكتاباتها. أطلقنا هاشتاج وأطلقنا سيرفي حيث طلبنا من النساء في مختلف أنحاء الوطن العربي أن تكتب قصتها مع الكورونا، جيدة أو غير جيدة.
نتذكر أولاً أنه جائحة الكورونا هي عابرة للحدود، وهي عبارة عن أزمة أدت لأزمة إنسانية انعكست أولاً على الحق في الحياة، على الصحة، ومن ثم تنعكس الآن على القطاع الاقتصادي والمالي، وطبعا القطاع هناك الآثار الاجتماعية.
بالنسبة مثلا لموضوع العنف ضد المرأة، زادت فقط مثلا في الولايات المتحدة في إحدى الولايات ثلثي الاتصالات للبوليس هي شكاوى لحالات عنف ضد المرأة. في بعض البلدان الاتحاد الأوروبي أيضا ارتفعت بمقدار الثلث عملية حالات العنف المنزلي بعد الإغلاق.
على أن المغرب كان سباقا في احتواء واحد مجموعة القضايا اللي عندها علاقة بالعنف، واللي اعتمدها خلال هذه الفترة الحساسة والعصيبة اللي يعيشوها المغاربة وكيعيشها العالم كافة.
البعض يقولون أن ما حصل عربيا هو تجاهل إعلامي نسبي أو تغييب كامل لجهود النساء في مواجهة الوباء وضمن صفوف الدفاع الأولى، وهذا الأمر ما هو إلا استمرار للحالة السائدة قبل انتشار الجائحة. فلماذا تفاجأت النساء العربيات؟ هذا ليس بأمر جديد.
هذه النكبة التي حلت على العالم أجمع حلت أيضا على النساء بشكل أكبر، خاصة السيدات اللي عايشين بمجتمعات أكثر فقرا في الأرياف، في المخيمات، في البيوت والمنازل الصغيرة المتواضعة.
يعني للأسف حتى اللحظة الكتلة المطلوبة أو العمل المطلوب، الجهد المطلوب الذي يفرض التغيير المطلوب بالتشريعات أو حتى بالقيم أو حتى بكل شيء، بكل المعيقات التي تحول دون تطور المرأة، نحتاج إلى هذه الكتلة الحرجة.
أنا مع الكتل، لأن ما زالت الأحزاب السياسية في الوطن العربي للأسف الشديد ما زالت لا تنتخب المرأة من أجل تقلدها المراتب كقيادية.
التحول إلى الأونلاين أو التعليم عن بعد بلا شك أنه رافقته يعني بعض من مظاهر عدم العدالة في التعليم، وقد يكون أحيانا قد عمق من مظاهر عدم العدالة الموجودة سواء بين الجنسين، بين الأغنياء والفقراء، بين المناطق أو بين غيرهم. وهذا ليس بالأردن يعني بالتأكيد، وأن كنا حاولنا أن نتدارك الأمر يعني ببعض المبادرات بتزويد أجهزة تابلتس لبعض الطلاب، كرفانات ببعض المناطق.
أنا اليوم أعتقد آن الأوان أن نحكي بتعلم من نوع جديد، لأنه حتى المعلم الله يعينه، هذا المعلم المناضل اللي انطلب منه بفترة زمنية قصيرة أن يقوم بهذا التحول بدون إعداد كافي.
نشوف شو وين نجحنا، وين التحديات اللي واجهتنا، وأنا ثقتي دائما في القدرات وفي الكفاءات الأردنية على اختلاف يعني مستوياتها.
بمواجهة هذه التحديات اجت كورونا وزادت على هالتحديات تحديات أخرى فيها. من هذه التحديات اللي نتكلم فيها موضوع خلق فرص العمل والتوظيف.
احنا بالوزارة أيدينا مفتوحة وممدودة لكم جميعا، سواء كنتم بالأردن أو خارج الأردن، خصوصا في مجالات العمل التطوعي مع الشباب والشابات. نحن نرغب الآن بتطوير مبادرات جديدة، منها الريادة في الرياضة، ولدينا أيضا مجموعة من البرامج الأخرى التي تتعلق بالبطالة والفرص المتاحة للشباب والشابات العاطلة عن العمل.
عندنا مشروع مكارم. المشروع استلهم من أبيات المتدبي: على قدر أهل العزم تأتي العزائم وتأتي على قدر الكرام المكارم. والمكارم هي هنا هي الأعمال الحسنة بنحكي عنها. فهذا المشروع جاء عشان يبرز قدوات أو زي ما يقولوا هيروز، الأبطال أو البطلات في المجتمعات.
القطاع العام أو الدولة ليست مطالبة بإيجاد فرص شغل مباشرة للشابات والشباب، وإنما الدولة هي مطالبة بتوفير الشروط لتحسين المناخ العام المساعد على تطوير الأعمال.
Winston Churchill says, never let a good crisis go to waste. So we need to use this moment to add value to what we value most. We will need to use this moment in history to consciously acknowledge, recognize, and value women's role in the economy and in the society.
فعلا بنتمنى أنه في ختام هذه الأربع ندوات إن شاء الله نتوصل إلى معكم وبالتشارك معكم إلى ملخص أو ورقة نستطيع أن نعممها على المنطقة العربية وتكون فعلا وليس فقط عن المنطقة العربية، نعممها بصورة عالمية وتكون فعلا مساهمة ومساعدة لكل دولنا وحكوماتنا ومجتمعنا المدني وبرلماناتنا في تجاوز هذه الجائحة.
enjoyed our video. For us now to make sure that we deliver the promise and what we promised, here is a sneak peek into the report we have created for the webinars that will be distributed to everybody that joined us during the previous 5 months. So this is the actual report, and it has all the sessions in it, and it will have all the summaries. We're doing the report both in Arabic and in English, and hopefully we will distribute it to you all. Just a sneak peek so you can have a look at it. Thank you everybody for listening to us. Now we'll go into our sessions, but before that I wanted to give a bit of tribute and a thanks to our to Her Excellency Wafa Bani Mustafa. For the few that don't know her, Her Excellency Wafa Bani Mustafa served as an elected member of the Jordanian Parliament for 3 consecutive years. She was the youngest elected member of Parliament in 2010. She represented Jordan in the Women's Committee of the Parliamentarian Assembly Union for the Mediterranean within the Jordanian Parliament. She's a founding member of the Climate Parliament Network and a founding member of the Arab Parliamentarian Forum for Development and Population. She was elected Vice President of the IPU Standing Committee on Sustainable Development. In 2018, she got the position as in the Women Political Leader Ambassador for Jordan. She's also the chairperson of the Coalition of Women's MP from Arab countries to combat violence against women, which consists of 13 countries and which we have partnered with for this seminar. So Your Excellency, thank you for being the leader of these webinars. With all the guests that you hosted and all the efforts that you put into making it a success. You built on your amazing network of powerful women, just like you, from around the world, to join us and share their thoughts and enlighten us with their practices. Your Excellency, after watching the video that took us back into memory lane, at the time when the COVID-19 pandemic first started, it was in March. And then when we decided that we needed to use these webinars to heighten our voices, to learn more about what's happening in Jordan and the region, what did we learn about the Arab regions with regards to responses, and what do you think is the aftermath of this pandemic on women in Jordan and the region?
Shukran Mayada. I will speak in Arabic if you allow me to speak in Arabic, and thank you a lot. شكرا كتير. السلام عليكم جميعا الصديقات العزيزة ميادة، العزيزة مي الريحاني. يعني أنا تأثرت كثيرا بمشاهدة الفيديو ومشاهدة هذا المشوار الطويل.
And this long journey for us throughout the past month, and how being at home, and how we could go behind the walls of our houses. Not only that, but also across the borders.
الحدود لنلتقي مع كل العقول في المنطقة العربية وفي العالم. كثير سعيد اليوم بانضمام كل الصديقات من رومانيا، من اندونيسيا، من السعودية. لن أتكلم عن الأردن لأنه أيضا الدكتورة الصديقة سلمى النمس رح تكون هي اللي تتكلم في الموضوع، ولكن لابد أن أقدم الشكر الكبير لمي الريحاني ولميادة أبو جابر، النساء في التطوير والتقدم، مؤسسة الاقتصاد النسوي، على عملهم الرائع. تعلمنا الكثير في الحقيقة، وأنا لا أريد أن أطيل، ولكن أكثر ما أود أن أشير إليه هو النقاط التالية. الأول، COVID-19 كشف أن الأزمات تحد من قدرة النساء على تفادي الانتهاكات، تضع الضحايا في بيئة تفتقر إلى الخدمات الأساسية، وعليه يجب أن تكون أي خطة استجابة في أي أزمة سواء كانت صحية أو أزمة غير صحية أن يكون هنالك وضع سلامة النساء أولاً، كما قال الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة. ماذا تعلمنا أيضاً؟ تعلمنا أن الأزمات تظهر الوجه الغير عادل في المجتمعات وتبرز الفئات فيكونون أكثر حاجة إلى الحماية.
Highlight the most vulnerable groups in the community who need more protection. So it is time to have special procedures not only for women but also for all vulnerable segments and groups, including people with disabilities and also including those who live independently. Also, another lesson learned from COVID-19 is that we as countries, as parliament, as government, and also as civil society, that we should put pressure on the decision makers to go towards smart expenditure for first things first to the humanitarian needs, less on weapons and arming, etc. But on humanitarian access and also infrastructure. Also, we learned from COVID-19 that the countries shouldn't be reacting only, but they should have banks of information to have to reach to an informed decision. To inform decisions, we shouldn't leave anyone behind. If we leave anyone, if we leave anyone behind, it's because it is unknown. So that's why there should be a really a robust network of information and a bank of information and data list. Also, Sylvia and myself, we shared the information regarding the SDGs. We learned that the time frame should be reviewed and also reprioritize the priorities so that to have goal number 5 to be more prominent in the agendas of all countries. Last but not least, we learned that there should be a proactive plan to face such challenges where women are subjected to higher level of risks and crises. This necessitates us to have early preparation in order to be able to adapt and then reach to overcoming a crisis. Lastly, I should say that the women leaders
نور وسلام في كل الدول التي استطاعت فيها النساء أنهم يقودوا حربهم في مواجهة كوفيد-19. ولا أنسى أن أقول أنهم قادوا هذه الحروب بالحقيقة، التكنولوجيا، الحزم والقوة، ولكن بالحب. أنا سعيدة جدا بهذه، وقد أكون حزينة لأنها الجلسة النهائية، لكنني سعيدة، كنت جدا بهذه التجربة، سعيدة. وأكرر شكري لكم، وأكرر شكري للدكتورة مي الريحاني وللسيدة ميادة أبو جابر، وأتطلع للسماع من كل الصديقات.
شكرا لك سعادة النائب وفاء بني مصطفى. A special thank you also goes to Dr. May Rihani, the director of this project from the US, from University of Maryland. She is, Dr. May Rihani is a pioneer in girls' education and a tireless advocate of women's rights. She served as a co-chair of the UNGAI, the United Nations Girls' Education Initiative. She wrote her famous book, Keeping the Promise, a framework for advancing girls' education. Dr. May, when we started with the idea of doing these Zoom sessions, we were probably the leaders in Jordan to start it because of your vision to support the idea. I remember you sent me an email and wrote, the measure of intelligence is the ability to change or adjust. So after observing all the Zoom seminars, Dr. May, how can the Arab region adjust intelligently to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Arab and Jordan also?
Thank you, Mayada, for this wonderful introduction. And I want to thank you because it really was your idea of doing the Zoom session. I was only supporting and recognizing the power of your idea. I want to briefly, before I answer your question, thank Her Excellency Wafa Bani Mustafa, because she also designed and conducted, moderated many of these sessions. Now, how can the Arab world adjust to this coronavirus? And after the coronavirus, how do we adjust our behavior maybe? There are many lessons that we learned. And I'm very thankful to Her Excellency Wafa for citing many very important lessons that we learned. I'd like to just add to what she said. One lesson that was amazing to me, and the more I reflect on it, the more I think how powerful it is. The virus does not distinguish between rich and poor. It hits the rich and the powerful as much as it hits the poor. It might hit the poor more, but it does hit the rich and powerful. Just yesterday, we learned that the president of Brazil is now infected by the virus. So presidents and prime ministers and ministers and judges and lawyers and doctors and everybody can be hit by the virus. So the virus, I hate to use that word, but it's true, it is democratic. It hits everybody. And the rich and powerful have to acknowledge that. They need to acknowledge that. And I think the more we reflect on the virus, the more we recognize that after we totally finish from it, because we didn't globally, some countries are doing much, much better than others, but we in the United States, for example, are not doing as well. So until we finish with the virus, we need to continue reflecting. And I believe we need to reinvent ourselves. Yes, reinvent ourselves, rethink ourselves, and reinvent in the sense of how we deal with others. We need to recognize in a more clear way, in a deeper way, in a more, with more integrity, that we are all equal. We are equal. Until we recognize that issue, we have problems, social problems and economic problems and power problems and decision-making problems. And the virus might help us recognize the equality amongst women and men, among rich and poor, among black and white, among all
ما بين السود والبيض، ما بين الأديان وما إلى ذلك. هنالك صلة، هنالك رابط بيننا. نحن بنو البشر، نحن كلنا ننتمي إلى عرق واحد، ليس العرق الأبيض وليس العرق الأسود، ليس العرق المسيحي أو المسلم، أنه عرق واحد وهو الإنسانية. عرق الإنسانية، ليس عرق النسائية ولا الرجال، الذكورية ولا الأنثوية، كلا، إنها الإنسانية. كلنا مرتبطون بها، كلنا إخوة وأخوات بغض النظر أين نكون. وهذا الفيروس أصابنا جميعا. هذا الفيروس لم يفرق بين الرجال والنساء، ولم يفرق بين أسود وأبيض أو مسلم ومسيحي. هذا الفيروس لم يفرق، لا توجد هنالك حدود للفيروس. فبالتالي هذا درس كبير مستقبل. أما بالنسبة لنظام التقييم بعد الانتهاء من الفيروس، قد نقوم بتغييره قليلا، بتعديله قليلا. عندما أقول أنه يجب أن نعيد التفكير بأنفسنا، أنا أتحدث عن نظام التقييم لدينا أو نظام القيم لدينا. وإحدى التعديلات التي ممكن القيام بها قد وأخذ على كلمة قد تكون أقل أهمية، أو تحويل عقلية الاستهلاك والاستهلاكية. يجب أن نقلل من قدرها ومن قيمتها، وأن نعلي من شأن روابطنا مع بعضنا البعض، وأن ندعم بعضنا البعض، وأن نقر روعة الآخر عندما يكون هنالك روعة. أيضا العمل مع بعضنا البعض بشكل أفضل، خلق شركات أكثر وأفضل، إدراك بأن التقدم لا يحدث إلا عندما نتوحد أو نوحد أيدينا. هذا التقدم لن يحصل إلا عندما نكمل قوى بعضنا البعض. إذن هذه كلها دروس إيجابية مستفادة من هذه الجائحة السلبية. عندما أنظر إلى روعة الإنسان وعقل الإنسان، كيف يحول هذه الجائحة الكارثية إلى درس إيجابي. شكرا لكم. شكرا لك دكتورة ميريحان. الآن ننتقل إلى جلساتنا. إن التحديات التي تواجه النساء خلال أزمة كوفيد-19 هي ليست منفردة فقط في إقليمنا، ولكنها مشكلة عالمية. وهذه خلال هذا الجزء نحن محظوظات بحضور 4 نساء قياديات من 4 أقاليم حول العالم، ونحن نتشرف بحضورهن. لقد تأكدنا خلال هذه الأزمة بأن النساء هن يشكلن أغلبية المهنيين أو العاملين في المجال الصحي، والخطوط الأولى في النساء وفي المنازل ممن يقدمون الرعاية سواء للأطفال أو للمرضى أو للكبار في العمر. بالإضافة إلى ذلك فإن إغلاق المدارس كان يعني بأن النساء حملن عبئا.
Almost every country, and we see that in news everywhere. Many of the socioeconomic impacts of COVID-19 have exacerbated the pre-existing inequality and discrimination both in the public and the private spaces. So starting with our distinguished guest from Romania, Her Excellency Dr. Silvia Monica Dinica, did I get it right? Dr. Silvia is a role model for Romanian women. She's a senator in the Romanian Parliament and a member of the Sustainable Development Finance and Trade Committee within the Interparliamentarian Union. Dr. Silvia has a master's degree in risk management and applied mathematics and a doctorate in applied mathematics from Colorado State University. Dr. Silva, the recently published World Bank report, Women, Business and the Law in 2019 showed that when it comes to a legal framework, Romanian women have equal rights with men in most areas of life, including perfect scores on indicators that measure starting a job, getting paid, and running a business, and also managing assets. And generally, Romania boasts the lowest disparity in wages between men and women, just 5.2% compared to other EU, which is 16, compared to countries like us, which is almost 50%. Romanian women are more likely than any other women in the EU countries currently to work in the science, math, and engineering field. So Dr. Silvia, upon the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, a number of military ordinances were in effect in Romania in an effort to curb the spread of the virus. Did these ordinances affect this progress, or was it a momentum on which women assumed further leadership to gain more clout for their causes and combat the challenges that they faced during the pandemic? So would you give us a light on Romania and what were some of the responses? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, dear colleagues and friends. Good afternoon, and thank you, Your Excellency Wafa Bani Mustafa, for the opportunity to join you today. Indeed, I would like to tell you briefly about the situation in Romania. That this pandemic managed to grasp the entire world, as we all know it, unfortunately. However, by doing so, it has also brought us closer than ever, because we are here together in a united effort to find real solutions to the problems we are facing. I'm truly honored to participate and share my views on the matter with you all. In Romania, for many months now, our priority has been, as for every other country in the world, to manage the devastating health and economic consequences of the pandemic and contain the spreading of the virus. And my country has not been spared. Until today, we count more than 29,000 persons infected and more than 1,700 deaths. Luckily, we have been able to continue our parliamentary activities with a combined system involving both remote and physical presence of senators, both in the standing committees, in the plenary sessions of the Senate, and same thing happened with the Chamber of Deputies. With health and economic emergency at the forefront of our agenda, there was a risk to decelerate effort for the empowerment of women and gender equality, of course. But in fact, this task has become even more urgent given the heavy gendered impact of the pandemic. Because this virus has managed to touch on and impact on all aspects of gender equality, including women's health and gender-based violence, women's economic equality, and women representation in politics and other decision-making roles. Gender-based violence is rooted in harmful gender stereotypes and norms that perpetuate inequality and power imbalances. This pandemic has prompted the increase of gender-based violence, mainly through the adopted measures in order to put a halt to the spreading of the virus. Because the reality was that we all had to, stay isolated, stay in our houses, because the measures mandated everybody, the military ordinances, as you mentioned, mandated residents to stay in their homes as much as possible and only leave their households for essential activities, such as grocery shopping or certain medical issues that required urgent treatment. An unintended consequence of these measures has been the confinement of the victims of domestic abuse with their abusers. In this context, also has been tensions rising from couple uncertainties in the context of the pandemic, because when you face the problems of losing the job or healthcare or the lack of money, this usually lead to an increase in the acts of domestic violence. We do have a study conducted by the Romanian Ministry of Health that showed that during the lockdown, the authorities have been notified in no less than about 5,000 cases of domestic abuse. This data also shows us that there were approximately 600 children involved in those households. Our response to this matter in the Parliament was to revise the law on preventing and combating domestic violence by introducing specific provisions, for example, regarding cyber violence, a crime that was not covered previously in the initial text, and by strengthening the protection of victims and of domestic violence, introducing compulsory legal aid as a matter of course for persons requesting a protection orders, if they don't have a lawyer of their choice, as well as a harsher punishment for the non-observance of the protection orders. In parallel with this legislative work, we are monitoring closely and give the necessary support for the implementation in our constituency of the Venus projects, Together for a Safe Life. This is a nationwide project financed with European funds and was launched in 2019. It has led to the creation of a national network of protected houses, support groups, legal and vocational counseling, social reinsertion services, and healthcare for the victims of domestic violence. These have been complemented by information campaigns aimed at preventing domestic violence. At present, we are in a process of adapting these activities to the new challenges and the new context generated by this COVID pandemic. This year in April, the Romanian National Agency for Equal Opportunities launched a plan for the countering and prevention of gender-based discrimination, including gender violence, in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I would like to tell you of the few of the measures adopted with this plan. We have the information provided at the dedicated phone line for victims of domestic violence was adapted to the new context. So for example, counseling on telework, work from home, facilities for mothers of children aged under 12, information for the Romanian women living abroad with respect to the pandemic-related restrictions, information on the safety and sanitary measures adopted during the states of emergency and alert. Also, a national public campaign was conducted to raise awareness about the risks faced by frontline workers in the health sector, the majority of which are women. As you know, the health professionals were in the front line. They are the one helping us in fighting the virus. Recommendations and counseling was provided to public and private entities so as to ensure that the principle of equal opportunities continues to be observed in the new pandemic context. Also, a study is being conducted in order to evaluate the level of gender-based discrimination on the labor market during the pandemic, based on the data collected from the economic sector. In order to be able to resolve the problems, we need to definitely know what the reality is exactly. We need the data to set our policies forward. And also data from various sources, that the National Institute for Statistics, national employment agencies have been processed in order to assess the impact of the pandemic as regards observance of the principle of equal opportunities. And of course, there is this dimension of economic equality, because this virus hasn't spared any country's economy. In the context of this situation, the gap between men and women risks to get wider. Because the consequence of this pandemic has broadly manifested as an overall economic insecurity and loss of income. As women have been disproportionately affected by job loss during this COVID-19 pandemic, this issue is particularly important to our discussions, because in Romania, job losses have been concentrated in the service sector, including retail, hospitality, tourism, all domains of activity where women are overrepresented. More so, as families now work from home in lockdown, women are still the ones that are tending to the house, taking care of the children, and now also all this overlapping with their working hours. So we need to deal with the situation of kids being out of schools, because the schools have been closed in Romania, and during this time, and we had to deal with work and kids in the same time. As regards to the women in parliament, I would like to tell you a few numbers, so as you know what the situation is here in our country. We have about 22% of women parliamentarians in the Chamber of Deputies, and about 15% in the Senate. It's better than what we've ever had so far, so the trend is increasing. We have also a standing committee for equal opportunities between women and men. As means to go forward from the pandemic, women must be equally represented in all COVID-19 response planning and decision making. And I think we all agree with that, because not only should women be consulted and included, but also women's organizations who are often on the front lines and have a wealth of information and expertise should be encouraged to contribute. Because even though the pandemic has indeed affected greatly the fight for gender equality, girls and women still have a loud voice and representatives which help making it heard better. And there's a voice from the parliamentarians, from the NGOs, or even from the communities. Because regardless of gender, we are all in this together. And only by staying together, we will be able to find the right solutions, and we will be able to build the future that we all want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sylvia. We should stay together and build the future together. I agree completely with you. I'm going to go to the next one. There are a couple of questions, but let's go to the next speaker. And then once we're finished, we can go back to the questions. I urge the participants to send their questions either on Q&A or on the chat, so we can actually collect them and begin to answer them, give them to the participants. Moving on now to Indonesia. Dr. Noor Hayati Azkaf. Dr. Azkaf is an advocate and fighter for women's rights and women's education. She continuously expresses the importance of gender equality for a quality education and technological innovation. Dr. Noor Hayati holds a PhD in social and political studies from Gajah Mada University and a master's in American studies from the University of Indonesia. She serves as an example and a hero for all women as the president of the Geneva Council for International Affairs and Development, the president of Jakarta International Association for Volunteer Efforts, and the vice chairperson of the Democratic Party of Indonesia, and the chairperson of the Democratic Party faction in the People's Representative Council of Indonesia. Dr. Noor Hayati, can you tell us a little bit about your country and their response to the COVID-19 aftermath? I read an ILO report that said that during the second quarter of this year, 305 million jobs were lost. And also there is expected after the COVID-19, or like within the aftermath, there's going to be a baby boom, and there is a whole kind of discussion over that. So could you tell us a bit more about the country and what are the dynamics there? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayada, for the nice introduction. And thanks to Wafa, my dear sister, for inviting me to join this webinar. It is an honor for me to be here with all of you. It's very interesting, and it's very enlightening to hear, to see the video, and then all your very enlightening speech. I mean, especially to the Dr. Mai Rahani, yeah, for the one race humanity. This is very enlightening us, that we should know that Indonesia is one of the fourth largest country. The population is 265 million people, with a huge island. I mean, we have 17,000 islands, so you can imagine how big this effect, I mean, that the pandemic affected us. And then we know that since this pandemic, it's some countries has a policy for lockdown, and we in Indonesia, we do have a partial lockdown, which is with the social distancing, and also work from home. We use work from home and long distance learning. And the late updates for the COVID is we do have a case, confirmed case of 66,000 people, and then recovered with the 31,000 recovered, alhamdulillah, and then 3,300 dead. This is bad news, that people die due to this COVID-19 virus. This is very sad stories, this pandemic, of course. And in Indonesia, we do have, we mentioned about quota. In Indonesia, we do have 30% quota for women in parliament, also in the election or in the political party. So during this pandemic, we have what we call a phase of transition, which now we are still in the phase of transition, we call it here. And then we start opening the economic, as you know, that the impact of this COVID that we do have if you see in my presentation, next please, the adverse economic, for the adverse economic and then negative health, jobless, as we all mentioned that, and gender-based violence. The most important for the woman, which is occupied more than 50% in Indonesia, SMEs run by women, and now are collapsed. Even though we have initiatives that, that motorbike, we use it in the Gojek, and also this motorbike, we can send food. So the women have the initiative to, when they stay at home, work from home, so they start creative usually. Women are very creative actually. Then they make food at home and they can sell it from home. So it doesn't have to be in the restaurant, doesn't have to be in cafe. This is the good innovative during this COVID that more women try to empower their economic from this pandemic by using these services. I mean that motorbike services. And then, the impact of negative health, as we all know that women are vulnerable to this pandemic because more women sitting as a medical doctor in the front line, nurses and midwife, as one of you mentioned about the baby boomers. Then also here, when the family are at home and 24 hours, they're at home now. And then the children are learning from home distant learning. I mean, that the burden of the woman become more because woman has more responsibility. But in Indonesia, that we do have what we call task force, special task force who are really tackling this COVID-19. And it's spreading in all cities, province and cities, and we do have Indonesian governor, a woman as the governor, and many women as a mayor, and also as a parliamentarian. Of course, we do have our speaker now is woman. Yeah, this is a good news for all of us. And then, so we try to be due to the quota that we have due to this. So now we do not have a special policies for women. I mean that it's not because we think that women representing in the house, that's so they can be of course working for women to prioritize to ensure women's equal representation, of course, and then also the planning, in all decision making. For instance, that the social protection for women, we give like cash transfer, but we make sure that cash transfers is some province or some they make the policy that should be received by the woman. So it's not giving to the man, but giving to the woman. Why we do this? Because we think that women take good care of the family. Not men, doesn't mean that men not taking good care of the family, but we want to make sure that all these special social assistance, I mean that aid give to the woman. And also that, next please, these policy responses, I'm going to say that I've been mentioned about ensure women's equal representation, planning and decision making, And then to streamline gender justice initiative among all national institutions. Of course, in the task force, there are many women there. We have, we also encourage volunteerism. So we do have students as the volunteers. We have around 200,000 students are volunteers. So we have 17,000 island. Then this is 200,000 volunteers is not enough for us. We need more and more. But this is a good because it's from the student. So and mostly women are doing a volunteers work. I think this is very important to do the best that we can do is volunteerism, because volunteers, I think, they do it from their heart. I mean, since you're working without any religion, with no religions, no race, like what we say, May race mentioned, one race is humanity, for humanity. We work for the humanity. And then we also, it's very interesting because we have one mayor in Surabaya, in East Java, and the governor also woman, and the mayor there, many of them are women. And it's very interesting because they really know these women are, we have social distancing, we have that, but the mayor itself, that she makes sure that all the people, all their people get health access, because this is very difficult when the woman's, you know, in one of the social media, maybe you heard also, that one of medical, I mean, the dentists, a woman dentists get infected to COVID, but actually due to the sad stories, because these dentists cannot practice their dental, because during the COVID, then they get really hard time to feed their family. This is many stories like this. So we make sure that we give the social assistance to the people, and each province, if we have not enough from the central government, so they have their own budget to feed the children. So now they stop all the infrastructure project. They focus on they are focusing on the COVID. This is what the special policy response to this pandemic. So all the mayor, all the governor, they can have their initiative, they can have their own budget, they can put more budget for the people. And then, of course, women in Indonesia is representing more than 50% here. And then we also placing a strong emphasis in putting a woman, I mean that of women during the pandemic. So this aftermath is, we are still in transition, what we call phase of transition. And up to now, actually the case in Indonesia, we are not going down yet, but we are still up. This is the sad story that we have still. But all the protocol have to be a strict protocol. So when you have no, if you are not with the protocol, then you get fined. You find it's quite big, so the people should really stick on the protocol. We cannot have what you call meeting, even in the parliament. We just open the parliament. We have virtual meeting for the parliament. We do not have physical meeting. We just had a physical meeting for this starting this July. But before you enter to the parliament, you have to get a rapid test. Make sure that negative. This is what we're doing. And we have to check the temperature, you know, that 36 or 37, that otherwise you cannot enter the places. This is the protocol. And then you have to sit at least 1.5 meter distance one each other, and we have to use the mask. This is what we have to do, and this protocol is everywhere. So even though you are in the car, inside your own car, if you do not use this protocol, you get fined. So you have to pay the fine. This is the protocol that we have, because we really want to make sure that all the people are straight to the protocol and to understand that this virus is not a common virus like before, but this virus is dangerous, and we should take good care of ourselves, the immune. And then, so now the situation starting going to the transition, but the mall, I mean that the plaza, they start open, but with the protocol. So how many people can enter the mall and how long they can go to the shopping, that it should be, and you have to register your mobile. So when you are tested positive, then everybody who are in your contact should be traced. This is what we are doing here. Make sure if you enter to the restaurant that you should have the your mobile, to register all the contact there. So we should trace. This is what we try to do better. Then also the task force, every day they will be on TV, every day on TV. Then they will announce then the case every day. And all the provinces, we have 34 provinces, and all the provinces has to announce their case every week. So we know which province that we put the zona, what we call the green zona, it's okay, but the red zona, it's locked down. Usually that people, they use in their society, they use their own initiative to have their community lockdown. So this is by their awareness. So we want education is the most important, I think, because this virus, as you mentioned, they do not difference between rich and poor, between the educated people or uneducated. So the awareness is very important. The awareness of the people, how we have to get our immune system and how they can get the help. But we do have also online help. So online medical treatment that if you have, for instance, for the responses, if you think that you have a fever in 38 and it's very concerning, then you can click and asking for a help. This is so you don't have to go to the hospital, but you just click the helpline for COVID, and then they will help you, the medical doctor there. The help that you need will be there. So what we have to do for the policy responses priorities, I think that for aftermath is the most important for women to get the financial access, to have their market access, so they can go back to their own life. They can be, because it's women occupied more than 50% of Indonesian people, and then also in the world. So it's very important. So I'm really appreciate this webinar and your work on the study for this, due to how important woman role, especially when they are the leaders, they have to lift up their another woman to be a leader, so we can help one each other. So once again, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we go to Saudi Arabia and to Dr. Haifa Al-Jamal. Haifa Al-Jamal is a model educator who leads by example. She was awarded her PhD in public policy from the University of Southern California, and thereafter worked as the first dean of the girls' campus in King Abdul Aziz University before becoming the president of EFAT University, the first university of its kind in Saudi Arabia, which actually is made by women, for women, and of women. I like that. She's an author of several articles and an avid supporter of women's education in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. She's the winner of the 1,000 Women for the Nobel Prize, Peace Prize, the Distinguished Arabian Women Award, the Innovation Award, and the World Family Summit Award. She's definitely a role model for the girls she so passionately and persistently looks to empower and inspire to reach the highest roles in society. I'm also proud to say that we also went to the same school together in Saudi Arabia, Dar al-Hanan, which is also a school of Princess Effat. So it's so nice to have you, Dr. Haifa, here. Would you be able to share with us a bit about Saudi Arabia's response to COVID pandemic and a bit more on education, girls' education and remote learning, especially now that you're heading the university? How did that affect girls' education and Saudi Arabia as a whole? Thank you.
Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين. سيدنا بالصلاة والتسليم. Thank you very much, Dr. Mayada, for inviting me to be among these great leaders in the Arab world and around the world. I am very happy really to also respond to this kind of a webinar about how COVID-19 impacted the women in the world and what are the dynamics in Saudi Arabia. And I thank for Dr. May and Her Excellency Wafa for their aspiration words regard women future in the Arab world. I have some slides I would like really to share, and so I go through what are the things that really happening to Saudi women before we go into the impact of COVID. I think just to make sure that people around the world understand where are we at this moment before and after COVID-19. As you know, Saudi Arabia has a vision of 2030, and women in the workforce is really part of that vision. They want we want really to increase the number of participated women from 22% to 30%. This is one of the very key measure of our achievement of strategic plan 2030. I can also start by quoting Davis Packard, who said, by allowing women in Saudi Arabia to shine, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman will take the country into the free, dynamic, spiritual, prosperous state it has all the potential to become, inshallah. So this kind of statement, it really shows that how women in Saudi Arabia transfer over the last 4 years. I can share with you some pictures of those women. Those women are either they're in the broadcasting news, or they are really part, this is really recently in the Royal Guard of Saudi Arabia. They got appointed now. You have to, this one is really a scientist. They're really working in the technology that really now served now the G20. This is a recent appointment for Dr. Laylak Safadi as a president of university. You can see now also the women are driving cars, driving a bike, working, looking at in sports. They're really in part of the, you can see them in the cafes here. So all of these kind of images really to help you understand where are we now than 4 or 5 years ago. This picture is really, it's a live picture. It shows, okay, how we bridge a lot of really difficulties that we had, okay, before, but now not anymore. I just want to point here that over the last 4 years, serious, numerous, and momentous change have given a huge boost to the women's ability to participate fully in the public life, enjoying newly acquired freedom and being at the forefront of change under reforms led by King Salman bin Abdulaziz and the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. In 2018 had indeed been a year of firsts of women in Saudi Arabia in terms of some very specific reform. Most notable have been youth-focused reforms, such as loosening tight restriction on driving, by having a driver license, as well as allowing men and women to attend music concerts. So together, and sports also area. From getting behind the steering wheel to being the driving force in prominent international government and business roles, women are now becoming or welcoming landmark social change. These are the dynamic that's happening. I just want to point also in 2018, King Salman annual address to the Consultative Shura Council, which comprises 150 members, including 30 women. The key theme of his message was empowering females in the kingdom to play an even bigger role across Saudi Arabia. In another notable step, King Salman appointed 4 women to important roles. Some of them is, I can really mention here, Tumadr bint Yusuf al-Ramah became the first woman to appointed as a deputy minister, labor minister. Kawthar bint and Dr. Ghada bint Ghanem al-Ghanem were appointed and the member of the board of trustees of the King Abdulaziz Center for National Dialogue. Iman al-Mutayri is the assistant to the Minister of Commerce. Women have also been appointed as a prominent municipal and international position. The idea also of in 2019, it's really the very important thing that we crossed is it opened our own businesses without guardian permission. We can do that. Before it was very difficult really to open. We have to have guardian to open our own business. Saudi Arabian ministry, and it's not everybody saying this is just only a reform without implementation. No, I can tell you for sure that a lot of women now do experiencing really different kind of a situation, and they're really opening their business without guardian. And they're doing their investment and in different fields, in different areas. The latest change can have positive implication for structure of the family. Within a family, traveling should be a choice. Reaching this level of equality means the relationship between a woman and her father, husband, or brother should be based on trust, open communication, and a sense of responsibility. Because women can really travel now without the permission from her husband, especially if she's 21 years old. That was not the case before. So that it means the relationship between a husband and wife became a partnership between two responsible adults rather than guardianship or minor. There is in 2020, there are 2 events that I would like really to speak about, and this is really shows the difference dynamics that the women is really doing. With the beginning of January, the women started really working in the G20. You know, KSA, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, have the presidency for G20 this year, and till November 2020. And that is taking a lot of effort from all of us, leader in different positions, women and men. So we're part of different kind of group, different kind of working groups, task forces, and we're B20, T20, Science 20. It's all of these kind of things. You will see women in different areas, but with a main theme or major theme that is women in business, where we want really the woman to, in business, really to show her area and how it's really contributing to the economy as a whole. The other event, of course, as we all know, COVID-19 and how the loss of jobs really, was really very impactful to everywhere. And Saudi Arabia is not the exception. But as I said, although the G20 event helped a lot of women, helped a lot of men also, not only women, but both really to be part of a lot of employment or jobs, getting a lot of jobs. But the COVID-19 came with some loss of job. But the stimulus of that, the government stimulus, financial stimulus, helped a lot really, and which was equal between male and female, was really helpful in making the contribution and making really, like, you know, how the government is really treating male and female equally in that regard. Of course, both event help women to show her added value. You see her in the health. I think you see in some of the NBC kind of news, so the female is really helping. It's in the front line, like everywhere else. In the education, you will see that she's doing her work at home, she's teaching, and at the same time, she's heading some education or other companies that she owns or she's serving in. So these kind of things is really, these are the dynamics that really the Saudi women are really going through at this moment. So in education, of course, we got hit like everywhere else, and we had really to move to online teaching over 1 week. We had really to move stop our students from coming to school and faculty, and then we changed the whole thing into the teaching and learning into online and remote learning. It helped a lot because we tried really to offer some help to the female, not even in our university, but also for other university, with some enhancement program that really helped some of the female in the Jeddah region, Jeddah city, to go through their process. We provided them with some of the resources like computer labs, like sometimes internet chip or access. So some of the things that really help the students really to go through that time. Well, alhamdulillah, we really managed really to go and returned back to work maybe 3 weeks from before, and we had really also the summer online to do the with the student. We did not make the student come to IFET University. We managed really to keep just only the faculty to teach online, just to ensure the precautious measure at this moment till we go over or recover totally from that. So I will end up with a quote also by one of the Saudi, her name is Lulwa Shalhoub, who said, "My Saudi friend and I, and many Saudi women no longer want to be framed as women of special circumstances who lack rights that women around the world take for granted. The new direction puts us as women in a place where we can gain individuality and confidence in our ability to take care of ourselves." So this is just really a statement that to show the independence is on the way for women in every single step and in every strata of the society and in every stage of the authority. I thank you for this, but I just want to make for future, the women now are trying really to be part of the decision-making process and in different fields, and they are requiring more rights on that, on the business, family business, on the part on the Majlis Shura, more they want more female. So these are things that really working on to really help the advance the women empowerment in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Thank you again, Dr. Mayada, and everybody. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this great panel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Haifa. It's great to see such progress that Saudi Arabia has gone through with reform when it comes to women. Our next speaker from our beloved country, Jordan, Dr. Salma Nims. Dr. Salma Nims is at the forefront of the fight for women's rights in Jordan. Dr. Nims holds a PhD in development planning from the University College London. She is the Secretary General of the Jordanian National Commission for Women, where she brings her 19 years of experience in the area of gender and development to ensure bettering the lives of women in the country. Dr. Nims provided professional development and gender consulting services to several government and international organizations such as UNDP, UNICEF, UNFPA, and others. Dr. Salma, once the COVID-19 storm settles and the dust clears up, and these are the questions I started with at the beginning of the first seminar. How will the gender roles and stigma will be perceived as we move forward? What are the messages we are giving to the public? What are the messages we are giving to young people, to future generations? when companies are struggling to remain operational, what choices will they be making? And would it be on the expense of women? And given that all the work that we've done in Jordan as community-based organization, as women organization, we see now patriarchy in communities and also structural patriarchy through our systems. What has COVID-19, how has it affected Jordan? So just give us a brief of how we are now.
Dr. Mayada, I was looking at the questions for a long time and I'm thinking, am I going to answer all of these at the same time? But I will try to capture, and probably I'm the last speaker, I think, and I want to be more forward-looking. But first, allow me to thank you so much for this opportunity to be speaking among such prestigious panel from all around the world, from women from different parts of the world, including our beloved Arab region, East and West. And also I would like to give special thanks to Her Excellency Wafa Bani Mustafa and Dr. May Rihani. And also I want to give special thanks for the amazing efforts that you did during the pandemic through these sessions. I would like to kind of, because we've talked a lot about the challenges, we've talked a lot about, and I will bring some attention to them, but I would like to start with a quote where Dr. May started, which is the importance of how the pandemic put us all as equal in being in this. But it's a quote that came out during the pandemic that I found interesting, and I will tell you why I want to highlight it. The quote was that we are all in the same storm, but we are not all in the same boat. So this is the importance of this quote is the importance of looking at women and women in different perspectives, looking at women and about capturing the power of women that we've also looked at and seen during the past few months. They've really, at some point we've heard about, during this session, about the vulnerabilities of women and how we have to respond to them. And at the same time, we've heard about women who are in the front line, who manage to balance enormous efforts between home and their work, and about teaching their children and working from home. We've seen amazing work from NGOs and CBOs in local communities being part of the response, even when the some governments excluded them, but they still went out and proved that they know the community, they know the needs of women, and they can contribute to it. And that's very important.
وهذا الشيء مهم جدا. لقد عملنا لقد سمعنا أصوات نساء بائعات حتى عندما تم استثناؤهن من الهياكل الرسمية في بعض الحالات، وهذا لما حدث في الأردن حتى أكون صادقة معكم. وهو بالنسبة لنا كمؤسسات مثل GNCW وغيرها كبرلمانيين
Wafa Bani Mustafa can talk about this. The voices were heard even when the formal structures were not there to make us to think. So the voices were there and they contributed to the discussions. And I think a lot that came out from all of these informal experiences, the women being in the front line, are actually great opportunities for moving on. And just to build up on the experiences and the lessons learned, there were lessons learned that are very important, starting with what were pointed out with Her Excellency Wafa Bani Mustafa, and amazing lessons to learn from other countries of what they've done. I want to add to them and build on them. I totally agree that if we want to make solutions, taking into consideration the different vulnerabilities and the power that we want to harness from women, we need to have the right data. Who are the experts? We need the data about where are the women experts, not only looking at the women in need and as victims, but also to realize that we have women
الضحايا والمحتجات، ولكن أين هن أيضا النساء الخبيرات التي يمكنهن الإضافة أو إثراء النقاش والاستفادة. أيضا الآن أريد ذكر تجربة الأردن فيما يتعلق بالاستراتيجية الوطنية. أيضا الأمر يتعلق بالآليات. كلنا توجد لدينا استراتيجيات، كلنا توجد لدينا خطط. الموضوع يتعلق بالمحتوى وبالمواضيع وبالتمكين الاقتصادي وبالحماية وبالحماية الاجتماعية وغيرها. يوجد لدينا خطط جميلة وكثيرة جدا. لما لم نستطع تنفيذها؟ أولا لأننا لم نملك البيانات الكافية ولا الآليات الصحيحة ولا الموازنة الكافية كما تمت إشارة مسبقة، يعني الإنفاق الذكي. وأيضا لا توجد أصلا المؤسسات الصحيحة موجودة، وحتى المؤسسات الموجودة لا تزال في العديد من الحالات لا توجد لديها القدرات القوية المواضيع المتعلقة بالجندر، وهي ليست فقط فيما يتعلق بالمشاريع الجندرية أو إضافة النساء. الموضوع ليس بأننا نذكرهم، كل ما يكون هنالك حل نعد نذكرهم في موضوع يتعلق بالمرأة، كلا ونذكرهم بإيجاد حل لها. لا يوجد النموذج موجود، ولكن كيف سنتقدم في تبنيه مرة أخرى؟ الموضوع عندما أتحدث عن البيانات فأنا أتحدث عن الوفرة. يوجد لدينا نساء قويات وقادرات ويساهمن في الحلول، ولكن أيضا هنالك نساء فقيرات ويعيشن في مناطق بعيدة. توجد لدينا نساء يعانين من الإعاقة، توجد لدينا نساء حوامل. فبالتالي عندما نقول بأن الخطة مستجيبة تجاه النوع أو الجندري، هي ليست نساء تجاه الرجال، ولكن الحفاظ على المسؤولية وكيف نلبي هذه الاحتياجات، وما هي النقاط المستضعفة الإضافية أو نقاط الهشاشة الإضافية التي تجعل من النساء أو التي يجب علينا التعامل معها فيما يتعلق بالنساء. إذا الكثير من النساء أو كثير منكم أثريتم هذا النقاش، ولكن هنالك نقاط إضافية. أريد القول أن ما يسرني هنا في الأردن، ولكن يجب أن نستمر بالتحرك بهذا الاتجاه. نعم، أنا أتفق بأنه يوجد لدينا بعض اللغة عبر العالم، سواء اللغة البرتغالية حول العالم أو لغة التواصل الاجتماعي، وحتى بأن نملك بأن أمريكا تستخدم هذه اللغة، فهي لا تقتصر على منطقتنا وعلى ديننا ولا غيرها، ولكن كيف نستجيب اتجاه هذه اللغة. الموضوع يتعلق بتغيير التوجهات، تغيير طريقة السرد، بحيث كيف نقوم بتغيير هذا السرد، من الذي يغيره، من الذي يقود هذه العملية. إذا هنالك عدة مجالات يجب أن نتعامل معها. هذا الشيء الأمر الجيد بأن هذا الأمر حصل قبل الكوفيد 19 قبل الجائحة، كانت هنالك مبادرات شاملة جميع أصحاب المصالح من جميع أجزاء الأردن، بما في ذلك القطاع الخاص، البرلمانيين، النساء البرلمانيات وغيرها. يوجد لدينا الاستراتيجية بحيث تم تطويرها بأن تأخذ بعين الاعتبار الأركان: التمكين الاقتصادي، التمكين السياسي، الحماية الاجتماعية، وإمكانية الوصول إلى الحماية الاجتماعية. هذا الموضوع يتعلق بالتساوي إمكانية الوصول، تساوي فرص الوصول، لأن جميع الأردنيين يجب أن يشعروا هذا الأمر في كل مكان، بأن احتياجاتهم بأن يتم تلبية احتياجاتهم الأساسية بأفضل جودة ممكنة لهم جميعا، حتى يتمكنوا من الوصول إلى حقوقهم أو الحصول على حقوقهم وتحقيق أنفسهم. فبالتالي عندما نتحدث عن المساواة فنحن نتحدث عن المساواة والإصلاح السياسي، ونحن يجب أن نشمل جميع الأردنيين. يجب أن نتذكر بأن حرب النساء لجميع الأردنيين، يجب أن لا ننسى الحرب السياسية أو المكافحة تجاه الناحية السياسية. فبالتالي التركيز يوجد لدينا خطة عمل ممتازة فيما يتعلق بالأمن والسلام وضمان الأمن للمرأة، وهن كان هناك كمان ممتازة، كان هناك تسليم المواد أو المساعدة الإنسانية، وأيضا كان هنالك في المجال النساء مساهمات في المجال الصحي وفي الجيش وغيرها. إذا الأردن فيها هذه الجهود وموجودة، ولكننا نحتاج إلى تحسين استجابة منسقة اتجاه الأزمة في هذه الناحية، ولكن أيضا هذا موجود في الاستراتيجية الوطنية، وقد تم تبنيها في 8 من شهر 3 أو من آذار. أيضا من المهم جدا ما فيما يتعلق بهذه الاستراتيجية، وهذه جاءت أيضا قبل التجربة التي مررنا فيها بوجود النساء والرجال وجلوسهم جميعا في البيت، بحيث أصبح الفرق بين العمل والعمل المدفوع. من قبل كان
and embed within families equal positive gender relations. So it's and the doctor from Saudi Arabia.
الدكتورة من السعودية العربية كانت تتحدث عن هذا الأمر، كيف نبني علاقة من الاحترام. هي موضوع ليس تصارع بشأن القوة، هو موضوع احترام، وهذه الاستراتيجية تركز على كيفية بناء أدوار جندرية تدعم المساواة وتمكين المرأة. إذا نحن نركز على هذا العمود في دور الميديا أو الإعلام، وأيضا التعلم غير الرسمي، مصادر التعلم غير الرسمية. لا نتعلم فقط في المدارس. وأنت دكتورة ميادة يوجد لديك خبرة رائعة فيما يتعلق بدور المناهج وكيف تلعب دورا مهما في بناء هذه الأدوار والمعتقدات في المجتمع. لكن الآن يجب أن ننتبه بأن وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي والبلوجرات والمؤثرين بأن أصواتهم في بعض الأحيان أعلى حتى من التعليم الرسمي. وهنا أود انتهاز الفرصة لذكر النقطة التي أشارت إليها عطوفة بني مصطفى الآن فيما يتعلق بالعنف السياسي، لأن هذا موجود للأسف. هو طريقة لدفع المرأة فقط للخروج فقط إلى النطاق الخاص. هو شيء ليس رسميا، إنها ليست حكومة، إنها ليست المؤسسة. الموضوع يأتي من توجه الرجال للضغط على النساء ولدفعهن. نعم، ولكن هنالك نساء أنفسهن، هنالك نساء رائعات في الأردن وفي العالم العربي وفي العالم ككل، وبكل تأكيد هنالك قوة. فبالتالي يجب أن نركز على كيفية تمكين النساء من تغيير السرد من أجل تعزيز هذا النهج غير الرسمي. أيضا بالنسبة لمكافحة العنف، فإن هذا عمود رئيسي في استراتيجيتنا، وهو يركز على طريقة التصرف والخدمات وعلى السياسات وعلى أيضا بناء العلاقات القوية. وآخر شيء مهم وهو أكثر مكون مهم لم يكن موجودا سابقا، وهو مؤسسات رسمية بحيث يكون لديها أطر عمل محاسبة ومساءلة رسمية، وأيضا توجد لديها خدمات وتسجيل وموازنات رسمية. هذا ينظر إلى قدرة الحكومة وعلى الخطط التنفيذية التي تتماشى مع الاستراتيجية. وأنا يجب أن أشير إلى أن الاستراتيجية تتماشى بشكل كامل مع أهداف التنمية المستدامة لدى الأمم المتحدة، وهي من ضمن التزاماتنا الوطنية. وأيضا أنها تنظر إلى الاستراتيجيات الوطنية مثل استراتيجية التعليم واستراتيجية تطوير الموارد البشرية، إنها ترتبط معها وتركز على وضع الموازنة وعلى تعزيز الشراكة ما بين القطاع العام والخاص والمنظمات غير الحكومية. وهنا أود أن أنهي أنه من المهم جدا أن ندرك بأن العمل تجاه المنظمات غير الحكومية والبرلمانيين والمؤسسات والاتحادات وغيرها، كل هؤلاء هم شركاء في هذه العملية. إنها ليست عملية من جهة واحدة، يجب أن نعمل كلنا يدا بيد. وأهم شيء بأن هذه الاستراتيجية تركز على الفئات الأضعف،
domestic workers and migrant women. So we have to work a lot on developing our ability to have data disaggregated according to all vulnerability to be able to build plans that are responsive to those needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salma, for the response. We had a couple of questions, and I know Dr. Noor Hayati, you need to leave. So one of the questions that actually struck us here was actually the figures of unemployment. Would you tell us a little bit more about the large numbers of people who lost their jobs? How does that impact women? And are the majority who are leaving their jobs are going to be women? Or so would you be able to respond to this question, which was sent to us through the question and answer, actually?
Thank you, Mayada. That's of course that, as I mentioned in my presentation, that women in Indonesia, more than 50% they are from SMEs, that they are running the SMEs, then they lost their job. And especially the lost jobs here is the jobless people now is gained from 1% to around 5% now. Can you imagine 5% from 265 million. So we are really in a very bad situation, especially due to this pandemic. So that's why we even start our economic activity, you know, one by one. I mean that we start opening back our shopping, our traditional market, even though that we have to use still stick on the protocol COVID. You know, we use the what we call number by number, which is number one and number two. This you know, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have 1, 3, 5 open, but 4, 2, 4, 6. I mean, that double are closing. You know, but we have to drive the economic. This is our concern, because the people, they have to still living. You know, they need. You know, our people. Some people are use their daily life. They have to work daily to get their life continue their life. This is a very bad situation, and due to this pandemic, that the most get affected are the lower people. I mean that because their daily life is closed due to the pandemic. So what we do is give them incentive. So now we try to make a policy, financial to the policy, which is we try to get more money for the COVID. You know what? How much that we spend now from 430 trillion up to 980 trillion now rupiahs. I mean that's around. That's huge of money, but the parliament has to agree upon this because our people are suffering. We cannot say no due to the budget. I mean, because the COVID and all the ministries, they asked to raise their budget. And then this is what we are really concerned, because what to do, and we have to raise, of course, that many debt that we are not agreed to. The parliament, of course, we do not want to get more debt, you know, from the World Bank, from every monetary institution. But then this the economic are stuck. So that's why we try to get the started the economic, open the clinic, open the medical, so we can try. And then when it's really make the curve up, then we stop. Then we make another. So it's just open and lockdown, open and due to this pandemic. So we really also to share, because we are the biggest country in the ASEAN, country, and we are the most affected because of the tourists, and we are very pluralism. You know, many people are coming, and then, but we stop now the tourism. So we really facing hard time now, and we hope that we can learn from others.
Yes, we are all facing hard times. I want to jump to a question that was also sent to Dr. Sylvia, but I think it would also apply to Dr. Salma. It is during the military ordinance, and it's the approach. I'm going to put, it was asked related to the courts, but I'm going to just add a little bit more to it. We saw two approaches in the world. We saw a more stronger approach, maybe more masculine approach of using the military rule or using defense law like in Jordan. And then we saw a more softer approach, people like in New Zealand, where they use the more, let's say, feminine approach as to more masculine approach. And in both cases, probably we did well by dropping numbers, because in Jordan we did drop numbers because of the defense law. And I'm sure I saw the graph in, for Romania where the numbers dropped. If you look at the both approaches, how have these would these impact for post COVID-19? Like, which approach would be more harmful in both cases? And
يكون أكثر ضرراً. والسؤال الثاني هل كانت المحاكم
based violence or domestic violence, because I know the courts were closed, were daycare centers open, were all these open during such a strict rule, which actually helped, but in the end didn't help women? So if Dr. Salma and Dr. Sylvia, if you could answer those. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. So indeed, we made it work. We managed to keep it to keep the virus, the spread of the virus. The courts were not open. They were judging the most urgent cases online. Like most of the institutions here in Romania, they try to adjust by moving a lot of the work through online, through the digital infrastructure. So they were taking the most urgent cases online. Also, the daycares weren't open. I mean, everybody, all kids stayed at home. So we needed to find solutions for that. I have 2 kids on my own, kindergarten and school. So all kids stayed at home, and it wasn't easy at all. It wasn't easy for them because they were suddenly cut out from any kind of, socialization, for, from interacting with their colleagues. And it was kind of difficult, to explain to them and to make them adjust to the situation. It still is. So, for example, the name day of my son was in June, and when I asked him if he wants a present, he said that he would like to have 2 friends over. He doesn't need any other present, and I think that's relevant for how the kids feel. They need that interaction with their peers. And what was the other question that you were asking?
I was asking the 2 approaches that the world has taken. Some took more masculine approach of actually doing military law and defense law, and then other approaches which are more about consciousness and more like what New Zealand went through, that more conscious raising, more probably it's a feminine approach. I mean, they both contained, but how did that affect
women? Think we all acknowledged that we as women are more close to the, to the New Zealand approach, because it's something natural to us, it's something that we can nurture easily. We can, it's easier for us to do it that way. And that's why we need our presence in all the decision-making process, and in the universities, in the parliament, in the political decisions, at the authority level, because I think what we are bringing is value, and it are attributes that we can use with this new reality, to put it this way, right? Because we deal with the new reality, but we can, we can bring people together. We can, we can build on common grounds and beliefs. Because of course, the disciplines and the rules, we need it, but they don't solve all the problems,
Thank you. And Dr. Salma, would you?
Yeah, thank you. I tried to be positive in my presentation, but the question brings us back to discuss the I would say the real challenges that happened. Me, definitely I would have liked more. I don't want to say masculine versus, feminine, I think we are all powerful, but yes, we needed a more balanced understanding of the impact. And of course, the approach to defense orders. I don't have a problem with the defense orders if dealing with them, if the instructions, if the top level or those who were around the table included those who represented a more responsive understanding of the different needs of men and women, children, people with disabilities, and that did not happen. So we were faced as we went with instructions coming out, and then we would be calling for the government to realize that one decision is impacting women in a more negative manner. So it was like we were all, and it wasn't only JNCW, it wasn't only the commission, it was civil society organizations, it was coming from the parliamentarians. They were all like responding, private sector. And I want to focus here. I just want, because I didn't respond because you had too many questions in my question. We have to realize that private sector are diversified. There are private sector companies that are owned by women, and there are those who are owned, public. There are big ones and there are small ones. So even the impact, the diversified impact on the private sector, and which one is hiring more women, which one is giving more opportunities for women, and unfortunately, so far the solutions are like one size fits all. Like looking at the private sector as if it's one bulk, looking at women as if they are one bulk. You talked about access to daycare. I believe that we should have, in the beginning, at least for women in the front lines, we should have provided them with nurseries. I know they shortened their days of work, but still they didn't have a place to put their children. I was dealing with everyday cases of women calling me who are working in the medical services, telling us, we don't know where to go with our 2-year-old child, and we cannot even put them in the car and take them to my mother, because in the beginning, the lockdown, we were not even allowed to see parents who are over the age of 60. So it was a very complicated situation that, despite all efforts to respond to needs of women, it wasn't as it should. And now what we are doing is actually preparing an addendum to the National Women's Strategy that looks at what the response to COVID has revealed in shortcomings in our approach to solutions, but also the direct impact of COVID on the long term, at least for the coming 2 years. And this will help us in the coming few months in preparing the action plans for the strategy. We have to contextualize it in the new realities. So the work has only started. All what we've been through is only just learning, and now we have to start using what we learned in putting the solutions.
Thank you, Dr. Salma. Dr. Haifa, I know you have another session and it will delay you a bit. So the last answer to you regarding women and universities, and with the new Vision 2030 and with the whole reform for women, what did COVID-19 really do? Did it help you? I mean, did it slow down the reform? Did it move it backwards? Because I know that there were women that have started SMEs, and it's such a difficult time to even start an SME and to move forward with the SME. So did they go through what is called the glass cliff? Let's give women their rights, and then we put them on this cliff, and then we throw them off because they're not going to succeed because we throw COVID-19 at them. So do you think this was the time of the SMEs and start opening up the reform, the COVID-19 actually delayed this progress?
I think I agree with you. It's delayed the progress, but with COVID-19, it affected both SMEs for male or SMEs for women. But before, it was really difficult for women to get any financial help and support. But now they're opening up for that, and the COVID-19 stopped all of these efforts at this moment. But I think with a new kind of reality that's happening now, and with G20 is encouraging the government, encouraging the private sector to help a lot, really to show the world who we are and how we are really helping women. I think two major banks are really integrating, and the chair of that bank will be a woman. And that will help a lot with giving a lot of financial support to Saudi women in the future, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much. And if nobody has any questions, I tried to capture as much as I could from the question and answer. We'll end this session, but I will give it to Dr. Mayri Hani to do the final ending. But before that, since this is our last session, thank you all from all around the world for coming and joining us. We love listening to all the international experiences. I would like to thank Her Excellency Wafa Bani Mustafa. She has been really a star with these Zoom sessions, with all the great people she brought on board. So thank you all. And our WPP activities would continue. I hope you would stay with us. We'll be working on political violence with Her Excellency Wafa Bani Mustafa as well. Dr. Mayri Hani, your final words to the great honorary speakers.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayada, first for organizing all of this platform, this Arab platform first, and then international platform. And thank you, Your Excellency Wafa Bani Mustafa, for assisting us in bringing parliamentarian speakers from all over the world. This amazing network of women speakers. You mentioned, Mayada, that we had 23 or 26, and with the addition of today's speakers, we might end up with, you know better the numbers, possibly 29 speakers from all over the world. So I thank both of you for this magnificent effort. I have few remarks. We learned a lot, all of us, and together. We are women's movement in this world. Yes, our project is focusing on the Arab world. We're implementing in 3 Arab countries, Jordan, Morocco, and Kuwait. But we have also activities, research activities, and technology activities that encompass 15 Arab countries. Among these activities is, for example, the hub of women pioneers and women leaders and civil society organizations. And this one was about 15 Arab countries, not just 3. So it's a regional project for the Arab world. But also, this project is about letting the world know how active Arab women are, how impactful Arab women are, how their role is a role that encompasses policy issues, economic issues, political issues, health issues, education issues. The role of Arab women is as important, of course, as the role of Arab men. And this has to be known worldwide. I'd like to end on a few notes. One note is that during this COVID-19 period, we learned many things. And one of the things we learned is that women's leadership role has been playing a very positive role in the world. We all know, or we might know, that 8% of the presidents of the countries of the world, presidents and prime minister, are women, which means 92% of the presidents and prime ministers of the world are men. But there has been already several studies, many studies as a matter of fact, and many articles about the leadership of the world, the leadership of the countries of the world, men and women, and how they have done during COVID-19. And these studies show us that countries led by women have done better during the COVID-19 than countries led by men. The best example would be New Zealand, but another example is Taiwan. A third example is Germany. A fourth example are Scandinavian countries such as Norway, Finland, Iceland, and Denmark. So there are many countries that are led by women that have done better than countries led by men. I want to talk about one type of leadership that both women and some men adopt and practice. And that type of leadership is based on a style of leadership that is practiced. And that style of leadership is about, at the same time, strength and vulnerability. At the same time. It's not an either or. It's about being proactive and compassionate. Compassion and strength at the same time. Vulnerability and proactivity at the same time. It's also about absolute utmost respect for the truth and absolute utmost respect for science. It's about listening to the experts and then taking immediate decisions, decisive decisions. That's what the women leaders of the world have done. the leader of Germany, and Angela Merkel, the leader of New Zealand, the leader of Iceland, the president of Iceland. And it shows that this style of leadership, because it's also compassionate and not just strong, it is strong. It's about strength, but it's about compassion. It's about taking decisions quickly after listening to the experts. It's not about hesitancy and changing positions and chaos, like what happens in some countries, sadly so, in the US with the president that exists today. It's about decisiveness. It's about knowledge. It's about the truth. It's about science. It's about compassion. And women tend to take this style or adopt this style in a natural way. The majority of women, not all women, but the huge majority, and a certain number of men. I'm not saying men cannot do that. They do that. And we can give examples of men that have adopted that style. So, in conclusion, women leaders are needed. Women leaders are solving problems in the world. Women leaders are setting a huge example of how to solve problems in a way that's compassionate.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Maya.
Ryan. Thank you, everybody. And you watch this on Facebook Live. It's going to be recorded on Facebook Live, so watch it. And thank you all, and thank you for the NFTs.
Thank you, Noor Hayati, Silvana, Haifa, Salma, May,
Thank you. It was an
Mayada.
honor. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
This webinar and this series of webinar is really the idea of Mayada Abu Jaber and her planning and her organizing this activity, which is a very important activity.
We needed to ask ourselves several questions. First, how will gender roles and stigma be perceived as we move forward? What unseen and visible messages are we sending future generation? Are sending our kids? What precedent are we setting, and what messages are we resonating to the public? Also, all the collective efforts of many organizations working towards equality, has it all been shattered in the wave of this COVID crisis? What are the perpetuated messages that is being legitimized and justified to erase women, maybe from leadership and maybe from history, in a part that we should be actually putting women in the forefront as they combat the virus?
Among the countries which have done a better job of handling and addressing the coronavirus pandemic, the percentage of women leaders is disproportionately higher, and it's higher to a significant degree.
And now with the prolonged quarantining, this has made it even more difficult for women to leave their homes in order to seek help from their relatives. So based on this data, it's clear that there needs to be more education and awareness about gender-based violence, strengthening of healthcare sector responses, sensitizing the local police and the legal systems, and an increased support for the local NGOs who are helping women living with this domestic violence.
As of April 24th, according to UNESCO, 190 countries in the world are currently experiencing countrywide school closures, affecting about 1.6 billion learners. This translates to over 103 million learners in the MENA region alone.
Because there's no any real access for the woman to the justice. As you know, the court is closed, the police department is closed. Maybe after the crisis, we see the real number about this crisis.
أيضاً أن أشكر سعادة النائبة والمحامية وفاء بني مصطفى، وهي عضو مجلس نواب كما قالت ميادة، عضو مجلس نواب الأردني ل3 دورات. أشكرها سعادة النائبة.